Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Daf Hey. We are 9 lines from the top of the Amid. At the end of that line, beginning with the word Dvei. Dvei Rabbi Shmuel Tana. So the Bismedish of Rabbi Shmuel, they taught us the following brisa. The Gemara told us that the din of Tashbisu applies on Erev Pesach. Abaye presented a arrangement of psukim which indicate that one is meant to abolish his chametz, starting from Chatzois on Erev Pesach. The Gemara here provides several alternate sources to the same concept, beginning with Dvei Rabbi Shmuel Tana, the Torah Brisa, which says, Matzinu Yodalet Shenikarishin. So he's coming to support Abaye's approach that indeed, Ach Bayom Harishain Tashbisu, Bayom Harishin is referring to the day before Pesach Yudalet. In fact, we find elsewhere that the word Rishain is in reference to Yudalet. Where do we find that? Shenema Barishain Bar Ba'a Asar Yom Nachodesh. The pasuk says, Barishain Bar Ba'a Asar Yom Nachodesh Be'erev Toichlu Matzos. So Barishain is referring to the 14th day of Nisan. Here as well, Ach Bayom Harishain is a reference to Erev Pesach. Now, although the actual strict meaning of the pasuk, Barishain Bar Ba'asar Yom Nachodesh, Barishain is in reference to the first month, B'chodesh Harishain, but Tana Rabbi Shmuel learns that since the pasuk omits the word B'chodesh Harishain, it only says Barishain, so apparently there's a dual meaning to the word Barishain. It's a reference to the actual 14th day, which is described in the pasuk. So here we see that Barishain is the 14th day of Nisan, Erev Pesach, and therefore when it says Ach Bayom Harishain Tashbisu, Sa'arim B'teichem, you want to abolish that sort from your homes, from your properties, on the Yom Rishon. What is Yom Rishon referring to? Yudalad Nisan, Erev Pesach. The Gemara provides several other sources to this concept that there's a mitzvah to remove your chametz from your possession. You're meant to be free of chametz starting from Chatzois on Erev Pesach. Continues the Gemara, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Rishon D'Meikara Mashma. Without this whole arrangement of Abaye with those two psukim, where we conclude that apparently Bem Rishon is a reference to Erev Pesach, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, the pasuk inherently is referring to Erev Pesach. Why Rishon D'Meikara Mashma? The word Rishon in itself indicates the day preceding the other days. Shenamar Damakra Harishon Adam Tavalid, where you're born before Adam. Adam is referring to the first person, Adam Rishon. So Harishon, meaning did you precede Adam? So here as well, Ach Bayom Rishon means the day preceding those days of Yom Tov, which are mentioned earlier in the pasuk. The pasuk begins Shivas Yomim Matzos Techelu. That's Yom Tov itself. Then Ach Bayom Rishon Tashbisu. You're meant to abolish that chametz on the Yom Rishon, the day preceding the aforementioned 7 days. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. So it's about 8 lines up from where we're holding in the Gemara. Rashi beginning with the words Rishon D'Meikara Mashma. This is Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak speaking. B'lav rumya dekra adadi. Without that contradiction between the two psukim that was presented by Abaye, it in itself, the pasuk in itself, mashma Rishon b'mashmos dekra, shu yom koydem l'chol shiva dekra. Apparently, the word Rishon in the pasuk is in reference to the day before those 7 days mentioned in the pasuk. Since the pasuk begins Shivas Yomim Matzos Techelu and then proceeds Ach Bayom Harishon, what does Rishon mean? Rishon Koydem L'Masa Kamar. It's referring to the day preceding those 7 days. Harishon Adam Tavalid. HaKoydem. So Harishon means did you precede? Did you do it before? HaKoydem LaAdam Rishon Nelanto. Were you born before Adam? So Rishon we see means precede. Here as well, Ach Bayom Harishon is a day preceding those 7 days that you meant to eat matzah. Continues the Gemara. Ela me'ata. So if you adopt this approach that Harishon means the day preceding the other ones, the pasuk says you meant to shake the lulav on the Yom Rishon Hachinami. Here's what you're going to say: Rishon D'Meikara Mashma. You meant to shake the lulav the day preceding Yom Tov, Erev Yom Tov. Shani Hasam. The difference over there is because the same pasuk that begins with L'kachtem Lachem Bayom Rishon concludes with Usmachtem L'fnei Hashem L'keichem Shivas Yomim. And we learn Ma Shvi, just as the reference to number 7 is Shvi L'chag. seventh day of Yom Tov. Right? Shivas Yomim is referring to the seventh day of the actual Yom Tov. Af Rishon, likewise, when the pasuk begins, Rishon lechag, is the first of that 7-day sequence of the actual Yom Tov, but not referring to the day of Erev Yom Tov. Chanami, here as well, when it comes to abolishing the Sa'ur, mitzvah of Tashbisu, Ksiv ach b'yom harishon tashbisu, shivas yomim matzis techelu. Remember, that pasuk also makes reference to the Yom Tov itself. Begins by Shivas Yomim Matzos Techelu and proceeds to Ach B'Yom Rishon. So it's connected to things. Just as the Shivas Yomim is in reference to the actual 7 days of Yom Tov, perhaps by Rishon is referring to the first day of that 7-day sequence, and not to Erev Pesach. In Cain, if that would be the case, Nichtav Krar Rishon. The pasuk would simply say Rishon without a hey. Harishon, Lamli. Why that added hey? Apparently it's a drasha. Shema Minola Kedam Moron. Apparently it's referring to the day before the 7-day Yom Tov period. So Achbayim Harishon is referring to Erev Pesach. If so, Hosam Nami there as well by Lulav Harishon Lamli. Why does the pasuk say Ulkachtam Lechem Bayim Harishon if it's not referring to Erev Sukkos? Visu and another kasha. Hasam Dichsiv over there by Sukkos. The pasuk says Bayim Rishon Shabbosain or Bayim Hashmini Shabbosain. You meant to refrain from Malach on the 1st and the 8th day. So we have the word Bayim Harishon, Eimar Rishon Mikara Mashma. Let's propose that it's in reference to the day before Sukkot, because it says Harishon. You meant to refrain from Malacha the day before the 8-day Sukkot set. Shani Hasam. The difference over there is Damakro Uvayim Hashmini Shabbosain, because the pasuk says Bayim Rishon Shabbosain, Uvayim Hashmini Shabbosain, and we connect the 1st to the 8th. Mashmini Shmini Dechag, just as the 8th is certainly in reference to the 8th day of the actual Yom Tov, Rishon Dechag. Likewise, the day described with the word Bayim HaRishon is in reference to the 1st of that 8-day sequence of Yom Tov, and not referring to Erev Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, okay, but if so, Harishon Lamali, why the word Ha, the letter Ha, attached to Rishon? If there's no special meaning here, if it's not referring to the day before Yom Tov, why does the pasuk use the word Ha, Rishon? Says the Gemara, Lemutei Chol Shamayid. It's coming merely to exclude Chal HaMoyed from the Isur Malacha. So only in the 1st and the 8th day you meant to refrain from Malacha, but on Chal HaMoyed itself, you may do Malacha. That's why the pasuk adds the letter Hey, which is come to exclude Chal HaMoyed. Says the Gemara, Chol HaMoyed, Chal HaMoyed, which is Mutar b'Malacha, you need a Hey for? Mirishon Shmini Nafka. That is already derived from the fact that the pasuk says, look, the 1st and the 8th day, you meant to refrain from Malacha. Apparently, all days in between is more Amrta. Isrich, there is a need for an additional lesson here. Torah needs to add a hey to teach us that Chol HaMoyed is the Mutar b'Malacha. We would not learn from merely the fact that the pasuk says Rishon and Shmini. Why? There would be room to think Hoyel de Kasser Rachman U Vayim Hashmini. Since the pasuk says Bayim Rishon Shabbosain U with a vav U Bayim Hashmini vav Moisev Al Inin Rishon. Perhaps it's coming to add on the previous sequence of days. The Afilu B'Chol Shamayit. On the 8th day, which is added to the previous day, you meant to refrain from Malacha. So apparently the previous days are also included in Isur Malacha, including Chol HaMoed, Kamash Malan. That's why the Torah finds it necessary to say Bayim Harishon, which is a miyah, to exclude Chol HaMoed. Says the Gemara, so leave out the Vav, which creates confusion, and leave out the Hey, which clarifies matters. You don't need nor the Vav nor the Hey, right? Because the Vav indicated that the Shmini gets added to the previous days, meaning that the Chol HaMoed has the same status as the Shmini, and the Hey of Harishon was meant to clarify things. No, only the 1st and the 8th, Asav Malach, but not Chol HaMoed. So leave out the Hey and leave out the Vav. That's one kasha. V'su Hasam Dichsiv Bayom Rishon Mikra Kodesh Yelochem. We actually have another pasuk that uses the word Harishon regarding refraining from Malacha on Pesach. Bayom Harishon Mikra Kodesh Yelochem. So Rishon the Mikra Mashma. Perhaps Harishon is referring to the day before Pesach, that you meant to refrain from Malacha. So now we have nothing that we can use that pasuk for. And in fact, we have 3 pesukim that seem to be difficult. We have Ulukachtam lechem bayom harishin of Lulav. We have bayom harishin Shabbosain, indicating the Isra Malacha on Sukkot. And finally, we have this most recent pasuk, bayom harishin HaKodesh, speaking about observing Yom Tov on Pesach. So we have 3 references to the word harishin, which we can't really explain. Says more Ella Hani Shleisha Rishon Mi Boile. Apparently, the reference to the word Rishon, to the term Rishon, in these 3 contexts is not coming to teach us that the halacha of Netilas Lulav, of Shvisat HaMalacha applies to Erev Yom Tov as well. No. The pasuk calls them Rishon for a reason, to teach us a lesson, a drasha. Mi Boile L'Kedetani Devei Rabbi Shmuel. We need it for the Brisa that was learned in the Beis Medrash Rabbi Shmuel, which uses it for a drasha, to teach us a lesson. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. B'schar shleisha. In the schar of Klal Yisrael observing the 3 things that are referred to as Rishon. B'schar shleisha Rishon, which were those 3 things we just mentioned. Shaking your lulav on Sukkot. Abstaining from malacha on Pesach and on Sukkot as well. So in the schar, the reward of those 3 things is Zachol Shleisha Rishon Klal Yisrael merits. 3 things that are called Rishon. So they correspond to those 3 things, Lulav, Pesach, and Sukkot, which are also called Rishon. What are the 3 things that they are Zeicha? Lahachris Zarishal Esav, to obliterate the descendants of Esav. As the Marshal explains, this corresponds to observing the Yom Tov of Pesach. We know that the subsequent exiles, all the Goliaths, are rooted in the initial Goliaths of Mitzrayim. So when one keeps Pesach properly, he is emerging Yetzias Mitzrayim. He is emerging from that first Goliath, which is a root cause of all the other Goliaths. So we are Zeicha to emerge from the final Goliath of Esav, Goliath of Edom, in which we are present right now. So that corresponds to observance of Pesach. Levini Beis Hamikdash, by observing Sukkot, sitting in the Sukkah, which are reminiscent of those clouds of glory that Aniyah Kaved, which is Hashem's abode, we are Zoichet to Bini Beis Hamikdash. And finally, as other Mepharshim say, L'Shmei Mashiach, this is a reference to shaking lulav, in which you combine all the elements of Klal Yisrael together, as the Gemara in Sukkah, I believe, says, that each part of the lulav corresponds to somebody else. The Talmud Chacham, the layman, etc. So, by combining everyone together, that indicates Shleimus and Achdus, and we are Zoicha to the Gula Shleima, which comes through Avas Yisrael, Avas Chinam, L'Shmei Shel Mashiach, the essence of Mashiach. Now, what's the connection? Where do we find that these 3 things that we are Zoicha to are connected, are related to the word Rishon? So the Gemara explains now. La'achar zar shel Esav, we are Zoicha to obliterate the zera of Esav. The Chsiv Vayetza Rishon Admoini Kuloi Kader Seyar. This was when Esav was born. He was called Harishon. So we see that Esav and his children are called Rishon. Ulebini Beis Hamikdash, where do we find that that's called Rishon? The Chsiv Kisei Chavaid Moraim and Meirishon Mekai Mikdashenu. So we see that the Mokah Mikdash is a reference to the word Rishon. V'L'Shmei Shel Mashiach, where do we find that is connected to Rishon? The Chsiv Rishon L'Tzion Hinei Hinam, and the pasuk concludes V'Yerushalayim Memaser Etein. It's a reference to the coming of Mashiach. So according to this approach, Rav Nachman Yitzchak's approach, Ach B'Yom HaRishon is certainly referring to Erev Pesach, because Harishon, just as in the pasuk of Harishon Adam Tavalid, is referencing the day preceding. And here it's referring to the day before Erev Pesach, before Pesach. So on the 14th day of Nisan, on Erev Pesach, you meant to Baal Shechametz, Mitzvah Shaspisu applies then. What about the other Rishons mentioned elsewhere? 3 in total. They are coming to teach us a drasha. If you properly keep those mitzvahs, you're Zeicha as a reward to those 3 things, which too are called Rishon. Continues the Gemara with another source that the mitzvah Tashpisu applies Erev Pesach. Rav Amar, Mihacha, I'll find you another pasuk. Lo yisishchat al chametz dam zivchi. Pasuk says, you're not meant to be sheichet your carbon Pesach al ha-chametz, with chametz in your possession. Lo yisishchat ha-Pesach v'adayin chametz kayim. Apparently, during the Zman of Shchitas Pesach, you're already meant to be free of chametz. And when does the Zman Shchitas Pesach commence? Chatzos on Erev Pesach. Apparently, that is the Zman of Tashmisu. Ve'imikol chad v'chad kishachit. How do you know that there's a standard time frame for all Klal Yisrael? Chatzos Erev Pesach. Perhaps the Torah is giving it to each individual according to his preference. When you shecht your carbon, whether it's the chatzos, whether it's an hour or two later, you're meant to be free of chametz. So perhaps it's not a standardized time frame for all. It says the Gemara's man shchita merachmana. It is logical. There's a svar to say that if the Torah links the two things, the mitzvah of tashbisu is linked with the zman of shchita. There's a svar that it's universal. It's not individualized. The Torah set down a standard zman. The zman shchita of Karban Pesach, which is chatzos, is also the time of tashbisu for all of Klal Yisrael. We found likewise in the Brisa, Ach bayam rishon tashbisu serim batechem. This pasuk is referring to Erev Yom Tov, that on Erev Pesach you're already meant to remove your chametz from your possessions, from your properties. Perhaps it's only referring to Yom Tov itself. Ayah bayam rishon is the first of the seventh day of Pesach. Talmud loymar leisishchat al chametz dam zivchi, which teaches us leisishchat es ha-Pesach. Adayin chametz kayim. So during Shchitas Pesach, you're meant to be fully free of chametz. Zman Shchitas Pesach is from chatzos on Yudalet. Apparently, that too is the time for hashbasas chametz. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, and it's interesting. Tosfos points out we have Rabbi Shmuel here who sources the halacha from the Shchitas Pesach, in contrast with the Tanad Rabbi Shmuel, with which we began our Gemara with today, which had another source. So this says we find many times that Rabbi Shmuel himself perhaps takes a different approach than the Tana the Rabbi Shmuel, a brisa taught in his base medrash. So in any case, we have another source that Pesach, that the chametz is meant to be removed from your properties on Erev Pesach. That's because the Torah links it to the Zman Shchitas Pesach, which is on Chatzos, on Yudalad B'Nisan. Rabbi Kiva, you don't need that source. I have another source, Hari Oimer, Ach Bayom Rishon Tashbisu Serim Batechem. So that's the pasuk that we're talking about constantly. That Bayom Rishon, you meant to remove your chametz. When is that? Uksiv Kol Malacha Leishasu. The pasuk tells us that on Yom Tov, you're not meant to do a malacha. Umatzinu lahav orashi av malacha. Now we know that burning, using a fire to burn, is an av malacha. It cannot be done on Yom Tov. Apparently, hashbasas chametz, abolishment of the chametz, is meant to be done before Pesach, because how could you burn your chametz on Pesach itself? Now Tosfos asks, well, if I have benefit from burning, that should be mutar, because it's a tzorech. And he says, for instance, you can use the coals of the burnt chametz. So why can't you do that on Yom Tov itself, if you're having hana from it? So Tosfos says that, firstly, it's a svara that the Torah is not referring to a specific case where a person intends to have hana from the coals. The Torah is a general halacha, and referring to even a case where a person perhaps doesn't have hana from those coals, so there's no tzorech here, and it would be asar on Yom Tov. Number two, he says that since you can't have hana from the actual burning itself, it's only going to result in creating those coals which will give you hana. That would not justify making a fire on Yom Tov. So that's Rabbi Kiva's makar. You can't say that you want to burn your chametz on Pesach itself. Burning is a malacha, and is also on Yom Tov. So apparently, Ach bayom rishon tashbisu is referring to when? Erev Pesach. Rabbi Yossi Omer ein tzorech. There's no need to have a different pasuk. Hari Omer Ach bayom rishon tashbisu serim batechem, and that's referring to May Erev Yom Tov. How do I know? Perhaps it's referring to the actual Yom Tov. Talmud loymar Ach chalak. Ach bayom rishon splits that day into two, which indicates that you can have chametz in your possession during part of that day. part of the day is okay, part of the day you're meant to be free of chametz. Apparently it can't be speaking about Yom Tov, because if it would be speaking about the Yom Tov itself, Mishari, can you have chametz in your possession during part of the first day of Yom Tov? Certainly not. We learned this yesterday, that the mitzvah of hashbasas sa'or is connected. There's a hekesh from that mitzvah to the mitzvah, to the isra of achilas chametz. And likewise, there's another connection of achilas chametz, achilas matzah. The isra of chametz to the mitzvah of eating matzah. They're all connected, all linked together. Hashbasa to achilas chametz to achilas matzah. And we know that achilas matzah takes place and is applied during the first moment. As soon as it gets dark, there's a mitzvah achilas matzah. So likewise, hashbasa sa'or is activated at the first point of night, the first point of Pesach. So you can't say that the pasuk Ach B'Yom Rishon, which tells you that you can have chametz during a portion of that day, is in reference to the actual days of Yom Tov, because you may not have chametz even for a moment on Pesach. Apparently, says Rabbi Yossi, what does the pasuk of Ach B'Yom Rishon refer to? Erev Pesach. So up at the Chatzois, you may have your chametz. Past Chatzois, you must be free of chametz. So, conclusion, we learned that the pasuk which says Ach B'Yom Rishon Tashbisu is telling us to get rid of our chametz, starting from Chatzois on Erev Pesach. How do we know that? We have no less than 6 sources. According to Abaye, apparently it's referring to Erev Pesach because you can't get rid of your chametz on Pesach itself. You're meant to be fully free of chametz throughout the entire 7-day period. The Rabbi Shmuel has a support to Abaye, because we find that the word Rishon is in reference to the 14th day of Nisan, Erev Pesach. Rabbi Nachman Yitzchak tells us Rishon means the day preceding. Preceding what? The 7 days of Pesach. Rabbi says you must be free of chametz during the Zman of Shchitas Pesach, which is starting from Chatzos and Erev Pesach. Rabbi Akiva says, Havara, burning is a malacha, which can't be done in Yom Tov. Apparently, it's being done before Yom Tov. Rabbi Yossi says, Ach B'Yom Rishon indicates that you may have chametz in your possession during part of that day. You can't be speaking about Pesach itself. Apparently, it's referring to Erev Pesach. And Ach B'Yom Rishon Tashbisu is telling us to abolish our chametz, beginning from Chatzos on Erev Pesach. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Shmamina, with the Rabbi Akiva class. Rabbi Akiva told us that evidently the din of Tashbisu applies to Erev Pesach, because on Pesach itself you may not burn your chametz, which is a malacha. Says Rav, apparently from Rabbi Akiva we can derive 3 halachas. Number 1, Shmamina, we learn from him, Ein bir chametz el sreifa. The only way to get rid of chametz is by burning. That proves that it can be done on Pesach itself, because you may not burn on Pesach, but if there would be another way to get rid of your chametz, for instance, feeding it to your dog, throwing it into the sea, then that can be done on the Yom Tov itself. So apparently Rabbi Akiva holds the only way to properly get rid of your chametz is by burning. Ushmamina, we derive from it another halacha. Hav'ara lechalak yatzasa. Rashi explains like this. The pasuk tells us a general description by Shabbos, lo sasako malacha, not meant to do any malacha, which includes all the 39 malachas. And then we have another pasuk which singles out burning, lighting a fire on Yom Tov. What's the purpose of singling out the act of burning, of making a fire? So we have machlekes elsewhere between Rabbi Yossi, who says that apparently the Torah is teaching us that lighting a fire is not really a malacha like the other malachas. That's why the Torah singles it out. Rav Nosson says no. The pasuk is simply trying to indicate that every malacha is a separate entity. And the fact that the Torah singles out burning, singles out hav'ara, it's merely to demonstrate that each malacha is an entity on its own. So for instance, a person should do many malachas, he brings many chatois, 5 malachas, 5 times a korban chatas. But certainly hav'ara, burning a fire, is just as much a malacha as all the other ones. Says Rav, apparently from Rabbi Akiva we can derive that hav'ara lechalek yatzasa. The reason why the Torah highlighted, singled out hav'ara, why was it yatzasa? It was merely lechalek, to teach that each malacha is a separate entity on its own. But certainly hav'ara is just as a malacha as everything else, and therefore it would be asar Yom Tov. Taisus actually says that it's from the fact that Rabbi Akiva calls it a av malacha. He says, "Matzinu lahav'ara she av malacha." which indicates that he holds that havara is no less a malacha than anything else. Or, says Tais, another pshat, if it wouldn't be a proper malacha, then it wouldn't be asar on Yom Tov. So either way, we learn from here that according to Rabbi Kiva, havara, burning, is considered a proper malacha, and therefore it's asar on Yom Tov. Ushmamina, the third thing we learn is, lo yamrina, we don't say hoil v'hutra havara l'tzerich. Since one may light a fire for the sake of oichal nefesh on Yom Tov, hutra namish l'tzerich, just as it can be used for food preparation, it can also be used for anything else, which there is actually a shita like that in Mesechus Beitz. Apparently Rabbi Kiva does not agree with that, and therefore you would not be allowed to burn your chametz on Yom Tov. Tana Rabbanan, we learned to the Brisa, we have two psukim which discuss removal of chametz from your properties. Number one is Shivas Yamim, So'ir lo yimatzi botechem. During the 7 days of Yom Tov, So'ir, which is a form of chametz, should not be found within your homes. What's the point of this pasuk? We already know this from another pasuk. V'alei kfar nemar, lo yirah lecha so'ir, v'lo yirah lecha chametz b'chol gvulecha. So'ir and chametz are not meant to be seen throughout all your properties. So what's the point of that first pasuk? The Gemara will explain that each pasuk is unique and has its own lessons, and therefore both are required. Explains the Gemara, Lefi shenemar lo yirah lecha so'ir. Since the pasuk uses the word lecha, lo yirah lecha so'ir, we learn from there, shalcha yateroya. It's only your own chametz, which you may not see on Pesach. But you may go ahead and see chametz that belongs to others. This is a reference to goyim. So chametz that belongs to a goy you may see on Pesach. V'shal gavaya, likewise chametz which belongs to hegdish. So since lo yirah lecha so'ir is coming to teach you a kula, two leniencies. It's only your own chametz which you may not see, but chametz which belongs to a goy or hegdish you may see. Yochel yatman, perhaps I would stretch out a bit further and allow a person to actually hide his chametz. He's not seeing it. Lo yirah, you may not see, but if it's hidden out of view, perhaps you can do that. Or v'yikabel pikdoines min hanochri. Perhaps a person can accept a deposit, a chametz deposit from a guy, for which he accepted responsibility. He has a achrayus for the safeguarding and security of that chametz. Perhaps you can do that as well because it belongs to a guy. Perhaps you can have that in your possession on Pesach. Talmud loymar lo yimatzei. That's why we need the pasuk of lo yimatzei. So pasuk number 1, lo yimatzei, which indicates chametz may not be present in your homes. Even if you don't see it, it's hidden away. Even if it's the guy's chametz. But since you have accepted the responsibility and achrayus for that chametz, you may not have that chametz in your possession. So that explains why we need pasuk number 1, lo yimatziv b'teichem, to teach us both these chumros. Number 1, even if it's not visible, it's hidden, but it's yimatzeh, it's present. And number 2, that if it's within your possession, you've accepted achrayus, responsibility for this chametz, even if it's not really yours, it's the guy's. You may not have that in your homes. So that's pasuk of lo yimatziv b'teichem. And then the pasuk of lo yirah lecha chametz is actually teaching us two kulas. One leniency is that it's only if it's yours that it's a problem. But if it's a chametz of a guy, you may have it in your possession. And number 2, if the chametz of hegdish, you may have it in your possession. So in short, we have two psukim. Lo yimatzei b'vateichem is teaching us two chumros, and lo yirah lecha chametz, lo yirah lecha so'ir is coming to teach us two kulas. Continues the Gemara. And the next statement of the Brisa will actually be a bit confusing, which the Gemara will tend to a bit later. Perhaps this restriction, this halacha that you may not accept deposits, chametz deposits from a guy for which you've accepted responsibility, perhaps that only applies to a nachi shlei kibashtei, nachi who you don't dominate, who you don't control. He's not your laborer. And he's not residing with you in the chatzar, in which case you don't really have a close association with him. In which case his chametz is not considered like yours. So perhaps it's only over there that it's asr. Nocher shev kibashte be'nachri, who you dominate. He's your laborer, he's your worker. V'sharem chabachatzer, or he actually resides with you in a chatzar, within close proximity. Menayin, how do you know that there as well? It would be asur, tamalay melei motzei, which teaches us that the isur applies there as well. And it seems a bit difficult because, if anything, the latter description of the nocher kibashta v'sharem chabachatzer is all the more reason for isur. So why would we need a special pasuk to tell us it's asur? More later will tell us. Perhaps we switch things around. Okay, we'll get to it a bit later. Let's go back to the Brisa. The Brisa continues, Bivatechem. So the pasuk tells us, Shivas Yamim lo yimotze, Sor lo yimotze bivatechem. That was pasuk number 1. In your homes. Says the Gemara, perhaps one may not have chametz in his home, but out in the property which is beyond the home, will be mutter. Perhaps one may not have the presence of chametz in your homes, but beboros, out in the pits, besichen, some other type of pit, ma'aris, these caves, which you don't really reside. It's not your place of dwelling, so it's not nearby. Perhaps you can have chametz there. Menayin, how do we know that there as well? You must remove your chametz. Tamalayma b'chol gvulecha. So that was the second pasuk, which tells you that even in all your boundaries and all your territories, you must be free of chametz. So again, we have 2 psukim. One speaks about le'yimatzei b'vatechem. That pasuk teaches us 2 chumras. Chametz may not even be present, even if you don't see it. Number 2, you can't have chametz which was deposited to you from a goy, for which you've assumed responsibility. And the pasuk there is referring to the homes. Pasuk number 2, lo yiro lecha s'orv lo yichal chametz b'chol gvulecha, speaking about territories and boundaries, actually teaches us 2 kulas. That only if it's yours, but if it's a chametz of a goy for which you assume responsibility, so you have no connection to it, it's not considered to be yours at all. Or if it's a chametz of hegdish, then you're okay. Says the Gemara, how do we know that the 2 kulas of pasuk number 2, allowing hegdish and goy, and the 2 chumris of pasuk number 1, disallowing hiding chametz or accepting deposits from a goy for which you've assumed responsibility? How do we know that these 2 things, the kulas and the chumris, will apply to homes and territories alike? Perhaps pasuk number 1, which gives us the 2 chumris, and make reference to homes, perhaps it only applies to homes, which is your place of dwelling. Perhaps pasuk number 2, which provides 2 kulais, only applies to territories beyond the home. Says the Gemara about Dayan and the Omer, I can still argue and say, bebatim oiver mishum bal yira bal yimatzah, in the homes where it's your place of dwelling, then we're more machmer. You have all these certain bal yira, bal yimatzah, bal yatmin, you may not hide, bal yikabel, pigdoinis me'anachri, you may not accept deposits from a guy for which you've assumed responsibility. That's because it's the home, it's your place of dwelling. However, in the territories beyond your home, these halachas wouldn't apply. And likewise, the kulais that the Torah connects to territories, perhaps only applies to territories. Bigvulin, shalchayataroya, perhaps only in the gvulin out beyond the home. We have the leniencies that l'ralacha, shalchayataroya, only if it's yours it's problematic. Avalataroi, shalacherim, shalgavai, but we allow you to see chametz which belongs to goyim or hegdish. So perhaps the chumras apply to homes and the kulas apply to territories beyond your homes. How do you know to mix and match? How do you know to apply the chumras of the homes to the territories as well? The kulas of the territories to the homes as well. Talmud Oimar, we have Gzera Shava, Sor, the Gzera Shava. We connected by using the Gzera Shava formula, Nemer, Sor, Rebatim. We find that the word Sor is mentioned in reference to homes. And likewise you find the term Sor in reference to territories. And the pasuk says, so we connect the 2 things, they're all one and the same. Just as the homes, which have the word Sor connected to them, we We have all the Yisurim. Don't see the chametz, don't have the chametz present. Ubal yatmin, nor can you go and hide the chametz because it says la yimatzeh. Ubal yikabel pekdonis ma'anochrim, and likewise you can't accept deposits from the goyim. Again, we're speaking about deposits for which you've assumed responsibility. So just as the homes have that restriction, likewise the territories, where the word Sa'ir is mentioned as well, we connect it to the homes and we say that all the chumras apply there as well. So now we know that the two chumras which apply to homes apply to gvulin as well. Again, which two chumras? You may not hide chametz. Number two, you may not accept a secure deposit from the good. Now, likewise, regarding the two kules that are applied to gvulin, umas or ha'omer begvulin, just as the gvulin, the territories beyond your home, which contains the word sa'ir, right? It says lo yira lecha sa'ir b'chol gvulecha. Just as over there, shalcha yataroya, the word lecha indicates it's only yours. That's problematic. You can't see your own personal chametz. But you may see chametz which belongs to goyim, or chametz which belongs to hegdish. So we have two leniencies applied to territories. Likewise, homes, which also contain the word sa'ir, have the same halachas. It's only your own chametz that's problematic. But you may see chametz which belongs to goyim or hegdish. So in short, we have pasuk number 1. Lo yimatzei sa'ir lo yimatzei v'teichem, which indicates two chumras. You may not have possession of sa'ir, even if it's not seen. Lo yimatzei, it can be present. So even if it's unseen. Number 2, we learn that you can't accept pikdonis, deposits from a guy, if you've undertaken achrayus and responsibility for the safety and security of that chametz. It's like it's partially yours. So that pasuk is in reference to homes, two chumras. Pasuk number 2, in reference to gvulecha, your territories beyond the home, provides two kules. Lo yira lecha sa'ir teaches you that only if it's yours. But if it belongs to somebody else, belongs to a guy, and again we're speaking that you didn't assume responsibility for its chametz, so it's totally his, or it belongs to hegdish, in which case you're totally disassociated from it. There's no concern whatsoever. And as the Gemara tells us, we use the Gzeir Shav formula to connect the two things. Homes, territories are one and the same. The same kulas apply all over, the same chumras apply universally as well. Amar Mar, so we just learned, and here the Gemara is going to elaborate on that cryptic, seemingly confusing statement in the Brayse. Amar Mar, ein li ela b'nachash le'kibashte. So we can't accept pikdonis, deposits, from a guy, and perhaps that only applies to a guy over which you don't, over whom you don't have jurisdiction, you don't dominate, don't control him. And doesn't live with you in the chatzah. So it's not close by, he's not your associate, you're not really connected with him. Only then it's asa. However, let's say we have a guy who you dominate. He's your laborer, or some explain he's a ger toishav, a sort of partial ger, over which Yisrael have shlita and domination. So in that case, perhaps since you associate with him, you're close to him, or Visharim Chabachatza, he resides with you in the Chatza, in which case he's your associate, and perhaps his chametz is like yours. People in the chametz share with each other. So perhaps since you have control over him and his chametz, perhaps in that case it would be mutter. Minayin, how do you know that it's aser? Tamalay might say that there as well it's aser. Klapi laya, which direction are you going? If anything, the most recent description of the chametz belonging to the guy who you associate with, who's close to you, would be, if anything, a reason to make it more stringent and more aser. Apparently, we have to reverse the sequence of the Brayse. So the Brayse is saying like this: one cannot accept a chametz deposit from a nachri. We're speaking where the Yisrael assumed responsibility for that chametz. Now, what type of nachri are we speaking about? Perhaps it only applies to a nachri who's your associate, who you dominate. Perhaps one who's living with you in the chatzah. So in these cases, since he would grant you access to this chametz, perhaps it's considered like it's your chametz. But if he's totally disassociated from you, you have no relationship with him, how do we know that there as well it would be asr? And the answer is lo yimatzeh, that in all cases the isser would apply because we're speaking that you took responsibility for the chatzar. It's as though it's yours. Rava Amar lo yilmay. No, don't reverse matters at all. And the Brisa is saying like this: Va'areisha koi. This clause of the Brisa is referencing the halacha we learned earlier. The pasuk says, "You may not see chametz lecha," which teaches us only if it's yours. Can you not have it in your possession? Shalcha yataroya, aval ataroya shel acherim v'shel gavoya. You may see chametz which belongs to others, meaning non-Jews, v'shel gavoya or hegdish. In what case does this apply? This kula. What type of guy are we speaking about? Perhaps it only applies to a guy who you don't control, who's not your associate, and doesn't live with you in the chatzar, in which case you're not connected to his chametz. However, how do we know to apply this kula even to a case of a guy who's your associate? You control him, you dominate him, or he's your fellow chatzar member. How do we know that even that type of chametz can be seen by you on Pesach? Again, we're speaking that he didn't accept any responsibility for that chametz. So it's a kula. How do we know that it applies even in this case of a goy with whom you have a relationship? The answer is lo yimatzeh. That even this case would be mutter. It says in 1 second, lo yimatzeh is coming to tell you heter. V'hai tana mahada heter. We have a tana who's looking for a heter. And he provides a pasuk of yimatzeh which indicates isser. How does that work? The answer is mishum shenemar l'cha l'cha turei zimni. As Rashi explains, we find twice in the Torah, once in Pashas Re'eh and once in Pashas Bay, that the Torah uses the word l'cha. L'yira l'cha sa'ir. What's the point of the duplicate l'cha? Apparently, one of them is meant to be applied to this pasuk here of Sor lo yimatzeh v'teichem, to teach us that even if the chametz is so close by, it belongs to the guy with whom you have a relationship. Even in that case, it's mutter because it needs to be lecha, it needs to be yours. In this case, it's not yours, nor did you accept responsibility for that chametz. That's why it's mutter in this case as well. So there really doesn't seem to be enough kamina lahalacha between Abaye and Rav. It's just simply a question of how to interpret the Brisa. According to Abaye, we have the chumrah that one cannot accept a deposit from a nachri if he assumes responsibility for that deposit. And the Brisa is telling us that it applies in all cases, whether or not you enjoy a relationship with a guy. Whereas Rabbi says that we're speaking about the kula, that one can have the chametz of the guy of which he doesn't have responsibility. There's no achrayis for the security of that chametz. It's totally not his. It's the guy's. That he can have on Pesach. And the Brisa is teaching us that it applies in all situations, whether or not you enjoy a relationship with the owner of that chametz. Continues the Gemara. So we learned earlier, the Brisa began by telling us that lecha indicates it's only a problem if it's yours. If it belongs to a guy, then it's okay. But the Brisa says like this: perhaps you can hide chametz because it's not visible, or accept deposits from a guy. Yimatzeh teaches us chametz can't be present in your property, in your rishus. We seem to have a contradiction. Ha'amris reisha, didn't we just say in the first portion of the Brisa, Shalcha yata roya, L'cha teaches us that it's only your own chametz which you may not see. Aval ata roya shel acherim, but you can see the chametz of a guy, v'shal gavay or hegdish. So we have an apparent contradiction. Can you or can you not? Like Kasha, the answer is depends on the context. The kavod le'achrayis. The Brisa which says that you cannot accept Pigdoinus is speaking where the Yisrael assumed responsibility for the safety and security of that chametz. So now he has an interest, he has a financial interest in that chametz. It's as though he has a partial ownership of that chametz. Therefore, you can have it in your possession. When the Brisa says you can see chametz which belongs to a guy is where the Yisrael did not assume responsibility for the security of that chametz, in which case there's no connection to him. It's the guy's chametz. Therefore, there's no concern. Ki hada amar lo Rava l'vnei Mechayza, as Rava instructed the residents of Mechayza, which was the town of Rava, Be'iru chamira d'vnei chela mibataychu. So they used to have chametz, which was designated to supply the army soldiers who were in that town. So the fellows of the town would have chametz in their homes, for which they were responsible. So if it gets lost, they have to go and replace it. Therefore, it says Rava, Bi'iru chamir, remove the chametz, divnei chela, which was designated for the soldiers. You have to remove that chametz from your home. Why? Kivon di ilu mignav v'ilu misfit. Because if that chametz would get stolen, v'ilu misfit, it would get lost, what would happen? Who would be responsible? It says, oh, it's yours, you have to go and compensate for it. So that makes us consider it like it's yours, and it's a chametz of Yisrael. So you must remove it from your homes before Pesach. So we see this concept that if a Yisrael assumes responsibility for the security and safety of the chametz, it's as though it's his, and he must get rid of it before Pesach. So in conclusion, we have two psukim. One pasuk says, Lo yirah lecha, which is actually talking about having chametz anywhere in your property. And we learn from the word lecha two leniencies, two ateirim. Number one, that if it belongs to a goy, that's okay. If it belongs to a hegdish, it's okay because it's not lecha. Rava teaches us that this heter applies in all cases, even if the chametz belongs to a goy who you control, dominate, or resides within the chatzah, because we have the extra word lecha. We have the other pasuk of liyamotzei, and that's referring to the chametz being present in one's home. We learn two chumras from there. One cannot hide chametz on Pesach because it's still present, it's liyamotzei, and one cannot accept a pikadon, a chametz deposit from a goy. And as we just concluded, it's only a concern provided he assumed responsibility for the safety of that chametz. And Abai tells us that this isser of accepting deposit from a guy applies even from a guy who you don't control, like Yibashta, or does not reside in the chatzar. Even in this case, since you assume responsibility for the chametz, it's as though it's yours, and you cannot have it on Pesach. And as the Gemara learned, we connect the two psukim, meaning we have Gzer Shava, that the kulais that applied by Gvulim applies to bottom as well. The chumras that applies to homes applies to the other territories as well. Continues the Gemara. So we just learned that if the Yisrael was mekabel achrayis for the chametz, it's as though it's his and you cannot have it on Pesach. This works well according to the shita that holds davar hagorim l'mamayin k'mamidami, something which brings about a financial gain and benefit is regarded as though it in itself is money. What does this mean? So Rashi explains, classic cases, an animal, a korban, person was magdish an animal, it's now hegdish, but he's responsible for the safety of that animal. If it gets lost, he has to replace it. Now, should somebody go ahead and steal that animal, does he have to go and pay kefil? The halacha is that only if you steal from a hedit, a non-hegdish entity, do you have to pay back double. But if you steal from hegdish, there's no din of paying back double. This animal is really hegdish, but the owner has a charayis, has to look after that animal. He has to replace it if it gets lost or stolen. So this is a davar hagorim l'mamen. It can bring about financial benefit, meaning holding on to this animal provides financial benefit for its owner. So the question is it considered to be partially his because he has that financial interest or not? Our brisa, which indicates that assuming responsibility for something grants you financial interest in the item, it's as though it's your chatzar, seems to be following the shita that holds that davar hagorim l'mamid k'mamidami. So it works well according to that shita. Davar hagorim l'mamid k'mamidami. Having a financial interest is considered as though it's yours. However, according to the other shita that says that this type of situation is not considered. It's not considered as though you're an owner. If that's the case, why is there concern with holding on to chametz of a guy? Shani hacha. Difference is that the pasuk over here says the Omar lo yamatzeh. So the pasuk is explicitly telling us that we regard this chametz as though it's yours. So unlike the general concept of davar hagar l'mammon, which perhaps is not considered like your money, Torah here is explicitly telling us, when it comes to chametz or machmer, and we consider it as though it's yours. There's another version of this discussion. The fact that the pasuk has to say lo yimatzeh to indicate that something of which you have responsibility is considered as though it's yours, doesn't that indicate that generally speaking, we don't consider it yours? So it works well according to the Shita, the Amar, Davar Hagarim L'Mammon, Lav K'Mammon Dami. It's not considered like your mammon. Haino the Itzrich Lo Yimatzeh. That's why the pasuk needs to spell it out. Lo Yimatzeh. That over here, it's considered as though it's yours, because generally it's not. Ela L'man the Amar K'Mammon Dami. However, according to the other Shita, which is actually Shita's Reb Shimon, holds that in this type of situation, it's as though it's your money. Lo Yimatzeh Lamali. So why does the Torah have to go and spell it out? Lo Yimatzeh. Isn't it obvious? It's a universal concept. If you have responsibility for something, you have a financial interest in it, it's as though it's yours. That's why Isrich, there is a need for the Torah to spell it out here. Why? There would be room to think, since when the chametz is still here, hadn't gotten lost, nor stolen, it's still present, what happens to it? So it goes back, intact to its owner. Perhaps, since it's still here, and it's going back to the owner, we don't consider it to be owned by the Yisrael. As Rashi explains, unlike the case of the animal which was stolen. So when the animal gets stolen, now the owner is responsible to repay Hegdish. He has financial loss from the act of Geneva. So as a result of that, we treat the Geneva as though it was directed at the owner, because you caused them financial loss. So because the animal was taken away, and now he has to compensate for it. However, in the case where the animal is here, it's intact, or in this case where the chametz is still here, this very object is going right back to its owner. I have no connection to it. I have no financial benefit or gain from it. I have no interest in it. So perhaps this case would be different. And in this case, we don't deem it to be the property of the Yisrael. We don't consider it to be owned by the Yisrael, because this object is meant to go right back to the guy. Kamash Malon. That's why the pasuk Lo Yimatzeh comes and teaches us that no, even in this case, we're actually going to return the chametz to the guy. It's also because you have a financial interest here. We have personal gain and benefit from having this chametz intact. So since you have that interest, because you're responsible for it, it's as though it's yours, it's within your reshus, and you must free yourself from this chametz before Pesach. Okay, time for a brief chazor of today's daf. The pasuk tells us that ach b'yom harishon tashbisu sa'arim b'teichem. So b'yom harishon, you meant to abolish the sa'ar. What is that referring to? It says the Gemara is referring to beginning on Chatzos, on Erev Pesach. We have no less than 6 sources for that. Abai explains the pasuk ach b'yom harishon, apparently speaking about Erev Pesach, because you can't get rid of your chametz on Pesach itself. You're meant to be totally free of chametz throughout the entire 7-day period. Today, Bishmol have a support to Abai. We find that the 14th day of Nisan is referenced to as Rishon in another pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda says the word Rishon means the day preceding this 7-day sequence of Pesach. Rabbi says you may not have chametz when you shech your korban Pesach, so apparently you must be free of chametz beginning from Chatzos on Erev Pesach. Rabbi Kiva says you can't burn your chametz on Pesach. Apparently you must do it before. Rabbi Yossi says ach b'yom rishon indicates that part of the day you may have chametz. Apparently it's referring to Erev Pesach because on Pesach itself, certainly you must be totally free of chametz. Rabbi says from Rabbi Kiva we learn 3 things. You must burn your chametz. Number 2, burning is a malacha. And number 3, it's not allowed if it's not for the sake of food preparation. We continue with the Brisa, which brought 2 psukim regarding abolishing chametz. Lo yira lecha, speaking about other territories, not your home. And lecha is teaching us that you can hold on to chametz which belongs to goyim or hegdish. Rabbi tells us it applies even to the chametz of a goy who you dominate and control, even a goy who resides with you in the chatzah. We have the pasuk of liyamatze, which is referring to not having chametz present in your home. That teaches us two chumras. You may not hide chametz, nor can you accept a deposit from a guy if you assume responsibility for that chametz. Abai tells us the isser of accepting deposits applies even to a guy with whom you have no relationship, like Yibashtoi. He's not with you in the Chatzar. And we concluded with Rava, who instructed the members of his town to get rid of the chametz, which was in their homes, which was designated for these soldiers, but for which they assume responsibility and therefore is considered like theirs.